Hello, everybody. Welcome to this edition, episode 30 of Coffee Time with Byron and Brett. I'm your host, Byron. My co-host, Brett, will be here shortly, but I'm proud to introduce on this episode number 30, former UFC fighter, Simpson. Welcome to the show. How are you tonight?
Good, Byron. Thanks for having me.
Most definitely. So let's hop right to it. You are one of the many. I can say this literally. Tons of sons of bitches to fight in the UFC. How hard is it to fight in the UFC compared to other sports? I know that's a tough question to ask, but you guys literally are tough sons of bitches.
Yeah. Well, it's a sport that is, goes back to the beginning of man, I guess, and so you kind of learn a lot about yourself stepping out in stepping out against another human being, and getting your hand raised or losing just by physically punishing somebody. You don't get that in any other sport. So I think you have to be a little different to understand that, to truly understand it, to actually partake in it. Getting into fights in general, just like a street fight or something, there's something a little different about somebody that would actually do that would get that heated to where you're actually going to fight with somebody. So to actually bring that as a sport and put it in a cage and train for it and learn techniques, whatever. I mean, obviously it elevates it, and you put a little money behind it and have someone make a living out of it. Then it gets super interesting. So you can't really compare it to any other sports. There's nothing else like it. I mean, you can compare it to wrestling, you can compare it to jiu-jitsu or boxing, whatever, but there's still, like I always say, like knocking somebody out was the craziest, greatest feeling, more than pinning somebody or becoming an All-American or winning a national title or whatever in that regard. Just that feeling, especially in front of thousands of fans and on TV or whatever. So things like that really, really make it unique, I guess.
Now, how tough is the training and the practicing? I know I've never done it, so maybe you can enlighten me how tough and how difficult is the training and practice for it.
I mean, it's as difficult as you want to make it. I mean, we're all subject to our own environment, meaning some people will not put themselves through a whole lot. They may think it's tough. There are other people that will murder workouts and train hard, and they may not think it's tough. It's all subjective to that. But if you were to just put it against a normal human being who's just going out to get like a 30-minute jog or something, it's insane. What we do, or what you would do as a fighter with the cardio, whatever cardio you're putting into your workouts, with the wrestling and grappling that you put into your workouts, and with the live sparring, let alone everything else that comes into play with diet, with nutrition and sleep and all that. Like, you've got to be pretty regimented. I think that's what's changed these days. I think athletes now are realizing, there's money in this sport, and so you better take it serious. You better not squander that opportunity. And I look at Daniel Cormier. He didn't make weight in the Olympics. Mm-hmm. There was no money on the line. There was Olympics on the line, which at that time was all of our biggest goals as wrestlers. But when it came time to really provide for his family and make the money that Daniel did, he was able to make 205 pounds. And he couldn't make I think it was 211 at the Olympics. Because he didn't do it right. He didn't take that part of training serious enough. As wrestlers, we're like, yeah, I'll make weight, I'll run a little bit, sweat a bunch of water out and go. But I think when it came to fighting and money, people took it really serious and really found the science behind it, and were able to hire people like George Lockhart to help them do it what they need to get done, get that weight done.
Now, tell us a little about the audience background that you think are at the events. Do you believe that the crowd is a lot more aware of what you guys do? Typically, because I know back in the early days, nobody knew what a submission, what jiu-jitsu was, none of that was. Do you think fans are more aware of what goes on in the octagon?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, I think that's the reason why it's becoming more and more mainstream. Fans are becoming educated as to what's taking place out there. It's not just two guys swinging away at each other. Like they see legitimate techniques. There are gyms around the U.S. now opening up and doing with jiu-jitsu and with striking, that it's giving people more of an appreciation for the sport. Like, they realize what combinations are because they did it in their, whatever punching fitness class, because it's being taught a little more legitimately than just throwing, Thai bow or whatever the crazy workouts were back then. Now it's like you're getting some of that. And we're seeing it on ESPN, we're seeing it in the highlights on SportsCenter. So the fact that, it's becoming more and more mainstream and more accepted, people are becoming more and more educated. And then, of course, we have kids that have been seeing this since the late 90s or early 2000s, and now they're coming up through, and now they're adults, and so they've been living with this sport. What was it like when it came out in 96 and again in 2004, where it was people like, what the hell is this? It's human cockfighting. Now it's, we've gone through the cycle, and now we've got a generation that was raised with this sport and is obviously also taking to it.
Now, I've got to ask you this. I've asked the other two MMA fighters I've had on, two that you fought, well, Mark Munoz and Mike Pierce. You fought them both. So I've got to ask, like I asked them, how did the fights go pay-wise? How did management do your fights? How they pay you? Like, did they pay you fair? Or they release you too early? How did that play about?
Yeah, I don't think it was necessarily fair. It is what it is. Whatever fair means, whatever your definition of fair is. I did sign a contract. I knew what I was up for. There was no negotiating with them. The only people that get to negotiate the UFC, and I don't even know if they get to, are the champs. Mm-hmm. If you win a title, then you have some power. And even look at John Jones. Like, he's trying to pull his weight, and they don't care. And Dana's gone on record saying, like, I don't need John Jones, and he really doesn't. I guess, I don't know. They've made it this far. They don't, and when they keep that type of power, when they hold the power, they're able to tell you what you get paid. You win the UFC title, and you go in, and they write you a check for $1 million to keep you and to make you happy when you're worth much more than that. But you've never seen $1 million. You've never seen over $50,000. So it changes your life at that point. You're going to do what you're going to do. I know there are groups out there trying to change and trying to organize and trying to speak up for fighters and fighters' rights and the Ali Act and all the stuff that they're doing, but it could take a while for that to happen.
I agree with you on that. So let's get into your career. You started in the WEC. Can you tell me about your debut in the WEC and who you fought?
Yeah. So I fought a guy by the name of David Avion. I don't know where, my memory's going now these days, but it was so long ago. I think I had like 3 fights in, and I took the fight on a 2-week notice. It had to be 2010 maybe. And so I'm like, yeah, I'll fight him. And they're like, yeah, they got this opportunity to fight, and it was for like 5,000 show, 5,000 to win. Mm-hmm. And that was pretty big money considering I was fighting for $1,000 a show, 1,000 win, or that, So I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll do it. Well, a hurricane was coming through Florida where the fight was going to be, and they postponed it They shut it down, and we didn't, which was good for me because I got more time to train and really prepare for this guy. David was a black belt. He had some wrestling. He was pretty proud about his wrestling, if I remember, and he was a black belt jiu-jitsu. And I think he's still got a gym down in Miami, and he's high level jiu-jitsu instructor down there. So I got 7 more weeks of training or something, and I fought. We flew out to Florida, and I took the fight and went out and threw overhand right, knocked him out in 17 seconds. And I was like, oh my god! I'd never knocked anyone out at that point. That was my 4th fight, and realized that I could do this a little bit. Like it was actually. It was fun as heck to knock somebody out. It was televised on like the Versus channel back then.
Yes, it was. Yep.
Yeah, one of those channels, and then I got like fight of the night or knockout of the night or some type of bonus. So I think I made like $15,000 in a matter of 17 seconds. I mean, obviously it was a couple months worth, and I had kids at the time. I had twin babies at home, so I really needed to provide for them. And from there, the UFC just bought the WEC, or Zuffa did, and so we moved all up into the UFC. So my 5th fight was in the UFC against the guy who I trained with in Arizona Combat Sports, and Tim McKenzie. And so Tim had moved. He moved out to California. I think he was training with Mark Munoz at the time, maybe up in the Bay Area.
Yes, he was. Yep, I remember Munoz saying that. Yep.
Yeah. So I'm my first fight in the UFC, and they're like, hey, you're going to fight Tim McKenzie. I'm like, oh, okay, that's a good first fight. I know Tim. We trained together, and he was a tough dude, but he was not on the level of me as far as the years and years and years of competition, and then, of course, the sport of wrestling. I mean, I felt like I could, at that point, I felt like I could beat anybody. My ignorance was just like, I would need the right hand and the ability to take somebody down or not get taken down.
Right.
And then I had to learn even more after that. But yeah, it was Tim McKenzie. It was my first fight in the UFC.
Now, were you guys well aware of the transition? Because it says right here it was the transition was from light heavyweight and middleweight to the UFC, and you made your debut that night at UFC Fight Night against him, as you said. But were you well aware? Did they tell you that they were transitioning? That you guys were transitioning from WEC, that they were being bought out by UFC? Did they tell you?
Going in, no, I'm not going into the WEC. I don't recall knowing that, but I don't remember. Maybe there was talks that they were. I can't remember exactly if Zuffa had already bought the WEC at that. Zuffa had owned the WEC at that time. Maybe they're just going to cancel them out because they were going to bring all the lightweights up.
Yeah,
all the smaller weights, and so that happened right then. I mean, I was a part of all that, which is kind of neat. It's so many little groundbreaking moments along the way of mixed martial arts and UFC, and I was on one of those WEC. It's pretty cool that I got to be in the WEC, really, because a lot of great fighters like Donald Cerrone and Anthony Pettis, some of those guys. Uriah Faber came out of Dominic Cruz came out of the WEC, so it's kind of gives me a little bit of pride that I actually got to fight in that blue cage, and it was a really neat show. It's one more little thing I get to chalk up on my things I've done in my life.
So then your second fight was supposed to happen on UFC Fight Night 19 against Dan Miller, but got moved to UFC 102 again, but got moved to
Ed Herman.
Yeah, and you fought where you fought Ed Herman. What do you remember about that fight?
First I thought, man, I'm going to be in a war with Dan Miller. We never fought. We never got to fight. I thought I'd fight him down the road, but he was one I was excited to fight because he also had a wrestling background and was a tough dude, a guy I really respected, just his career and the way he fought. As I did Ed Herman, and I knew who Ed Herman trained with. I knew Ed Herman's background there out of Oregon. I fly to Portland to fight him, and basically in his backyard. And he was getting trained by Matt Lindland, who a good friend of mine and somebody who I kind of idolized and looked up to in his wrestling career, and I'd known him since I was in high school and he was in college, so that was all. It's just kind of a small world that we were in anyway. I went out and had a really good fight with Ed. He ended up tearing his ACL on a knee on a takedown that I had where I threw a punch and like double legged him and wrapped his leg with my like a trip and blew his knee out. Which I wasn't going to stop after that. I just kept trying to hit him, and he tore his knee, and then he did come out of the corner, I don't think, after the second because it was so bad. So I was getting him pretty good, and I felt like I was going to eventually, if he wouldn't have torn, I felt like I was going to beat him regardless. But yeah, no, I mean that's a crappy thing to have happen to you in the middle of a fight.
Yeah.
You can't go on.
Well, yeah. Look at what happened with. I'm sure you still watch UFC. Look at what happened to Chris Weidman a couple UFC pay-per-views ago.
Yeah.
He went to go kick and tore his leg.
Yeah.
I mean, brutal.
Yeah. Same thing he did to Anderson Silva. So
yeah.
It's kind of crazy how that happened to him, and he did it to a legend like Anderson.
So then your next fight, you went on to face Tom Waller, who's a badass. I thought he was always related to Robbie Waller, but nope, he's not. But he's also a badass as well. So you win that fight by controversial split decision. Did you think you won that fight, or do you think he won it?
Yeah, I thought I won. We had a war. I mean, he landed some good strikes on me, but I did what I needed to do to get the win. I definitely thought I won 2 to 3 rounds. He would dispute that, obviously, but it is what it is. Like that's a long time ago, and Tom's going to do some pretty cool things. I think he's like trying to get in the WWE, or who knows what he's doing.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I heard about that. He's trying to pull a Lesnar and Ronda Rousey, so hey, it might work for him. Who knows? Who knows? But you then face Chris Lieben at UFC 114, but instead it took place at the Ultimate Fighter, Team Liddell and Ortiz. What do you remember about that fight and facing Chris Lieben, who is also another badass in the middleweight division at the time?
Yeah, I trained really good for that, but I was in between gyms. We left Arizona Combat Sports and we were starting our own gym, but we didn't get it done in time, so we were up at another gym in Scottsdale. I was flying out to train at AKA with Josh Koscheck like every week. I was heading out there, leaving my family, which was a rough one. I did that for like 8 weeks. I was back and forth, and felt really good though. Like had some good runs with Josh out at AKA, and was training really hard with a guy by the name of Brian Davis, who had this training room. It was me, Henry Cejudo, Brian Bader, Stevie Dalloway. We'd get together and we'd run these treadmills. And man, I was firing all cylinders. I stepped into the cage and kind of put it on Lieb in the first round. Dropping him, took him down, punching, hit him with some hard stuff, and felt untouchable. And man, I came out in the second round and I was done. It was the weirdest feeling. It was adrenaline dump, whatever you want to call it. I don't know if it was that. I know I was in shape, but I just felt like completely lethargic and I was out of it. And so he hit me pretty good. I kind of fell and stumbled against the cage and stood up, and the ref called it off, which I thought I was fine. I go, I'm fine, what are you doing? And he looked at me like, oh crap, I messed up. And I was. I needed a little time to recover. And Chris was walking across the cage. He was getting ready to get me even more. So who knows? Maybe the ref saved me. Maybe I could have continued to fight back, but geez, Chris was freaking tough as hell. I think he fought 2 weeks later and beat Japanese guy. It was.
I know who you're talking about. I can't think of his name right now. I know.
Sakuraba or something.
Yes, it was something of that name. Yeah.
Yeah, Lieben was a bit of a freak, and then he tested positive for some stuff in the system. So, I know I hit Chris with everything I had, and it stunned him. He said after, like, man, dude, that guy really hits hard, but thanks for not falling over.
So, before I get into your next fight, now you mentioned, I gotta ask you then, because you just said about ref stoppage, do you feel as a fighter when you know you can go and then the ref stops it early, or do you think the ref knows right away, oh, this man is in trouble, I need to stop the fight? How does that go in the fight?
I don't know. I mean, I'm never ref to fight, I guess, but I don't know. I know that at the same ref with Brock Lesnar and dude from Colorado. I can't even slip my name right now.
Mir?
No, it wasn't Mir. It was anyway. He was beating Brock. He was beating the brakes off of Brock, and Brock. He should have called the fight, and Brock was the champ. And he kept going and hitting him. And should have called the fight, and they let it get it out of the first round. And then Brock went back to his corner, recovered, came back, won the fight. So I'm like, man, maybe he learned his lesson for me, because he called my fight the week before, and called me too soon. So he was like, I gotta let this guy hang in there a little bit.
So now let's get on. After that, let's get on to your next fight. I want to hear more about this one. I got into a little bit with Mark himself. Your next fight was November 20th, 2010 at 123 against him, and you lost to him unanimous decision. Take us through that fight.
Yeah, Mark and I have been friends for a long time. We trained together. Prior to that. Like, we were both wrestling coaches, and we were talking about getting into this, this MMA stuff, and he was doing it. So we were in Detroit at the NCAA tournament as coaches. He was at UC Davis, and I was at Cal Poly at the time. Mm-hmm. And we trained and talked about it at the arena that we fast forward to that we fought in several years later, which is a kind of crazy story. Mark outstruck me. I mean, I took him down a lot more than he took me down. I don't know if he took me down, but I took him down 5 times. But he outstruck me, and that's kind of the name of the game, I guess. So that was another one that it was hard to do. I remember thinking, like, man, am I going to be, like, I got my own head, like, am I going to be able to hit Mark? Am I going to be able to elbow him if I need to? Which is the stupidest, craziest thing I should have been thinking at the time. And I'm sure he was thinking the same, and thinking about, man, he's got kids, and he needs this, I got kids. Just a really weird thing. I think that's changed these days, and, the sport's evolved, and you learn, like, yeah, you're going to fight friends, and it is what it is. You might as well go play basketball against them, same thing, one-on-one, and see who wins that. So I just maybe approached that a little bit wrong, but Mark's a freak, and he was that close to being the champion of the world, in my opinion, in that weight class. We were all really close, I think, at middleweight. That's kind of it with Mark.
Now, I saw earlier on Twitter. Are you still training his kids, or in the?
No, his son wrestles at Arizona State University, which is 3 miles from my house, and Trey's been there this year, and so when his family, they would want to come out, I just invited them, like, you can stay with us. We got a room in a big house, so you can crash here if you want to get a hotel, and obviously COVID kind of threw a wrench into everything this past year, but we'll see if he takes me up on it.
Yeah, he will. I see it. He's a nice guy, and you guys still remain friends to this day. So
Mark's the best.
So then you return at UFC Fight Night 24 in 2011 to face Mario Miranda, and you won that fight. What do you remember most about that fight?
So I think that's the fight where I got the record that I recently found out that I had for most takedowns at middleweight.
Yep, that's what it says here. Yep.
Yeah, so I took him down a bunch. He was in black belt jiu-jitsu. I needed the win. I was coming off of a loss. I didn't. So I was trying to figure out a strategy to make sure I got that second check, because it sucks, like, training all that time and making $15,000 as opposed to 30 or whatever I was at the time on my contract. So, you kind of got that fight out of me, and I was thinking, like, man, if I was getting paid $100,000 for this fight, well then, I'm going to let it, and I'm not going to be cut, I'm going to fight my butt off. But they really put, at that time, I don't know what the guys are getting paid now, but to me, they put fighters in a crazy position, because they're making you fight to get that next check. So you're going to do whatever it takes to get your hand raised, whether it means holding someone against a fence, or taking down, holding them, and not necessarily finishing or whatever, trying to finish, but it just kind of changed my attitude, because I needed that. I had people to provide for back home, so I didn't approach it how I probably should have to remain in there and be an exciting fighter like I started out doing. Like everything switched for me because I needed that second check.
Now, I remember this one. You were supposed to fight Jason Miller at 132, but he ended up being a coach with Michael Bisping in the Ultimate Fighter 14. So then they switched you to face Brad Tavares, and you won by unanimous decision. What about that fight? Did you take him down a lot as well?
Yeah, I tried. He's a freaking really good athlete. I think I held him against the cage more than anything. Another one that I just need to get the win, and I knew how dangerous he was. He could hit, he was young, he could hit hard. But I really wanted to fight Mayhem Miller, and that's where I kind of got screwed on that one, I think. So he talked his way into getting the Ultimate Fighter show, and it is what it is. I mean, he didn't deserve that. To me, he was not very good at all anyway. He was good at talking, but it's another story, I guess. CB Dollar ended up beating him up anyway. But, yeah, Brad Tavares was really good, and he's still fighting in the UFC now. He was, a tough athlete. I knew he was going to be tough. I was surprised how good he was at defending my takedowns that I can usually get most anybody with, and he was able to stay on his feet against the cage, so I had to close the distance, get a hold of him, because he hit hard.
Now, another good friend of the show that also fought you, Mike Pierce, you guys fought at October 5th, 2012 at the UFC on FX5 show. Did you have a funny feeling? Did you know that the UFC was not going to renew your contract after that fight?
I knew going in. We were told, like, it's either you or Mike, and whoever wins, stays in. I'm like, oh, God, well, all right. And that's kind of how he was, the matchmaker. It is a crappy thing to put us in. We were both, they wanted to put us the first fight card, and then I guess people were talking and Twitter or whatever, but it got moved to the televised part of the card because people did want to see us fight, regardless of what, they thought, the UFC thought.
Right.
And that was my second fight down at 170, so I had to cut hard. I didn't make 170 since I was in high school, so it had been many years that, back that I was actually that light, and so I did everything and was in phenomenal shape and was shredded and was probably 2.5% body fat. I remember cutting weight with Mike in the sauna, and he's in there and he's crying, he's just being a big baby. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna kill this guy. I can't wait to get my hands on him. I can't stand it. He was just whining and I'm shredded, like I'm the one that should be dying. And he had like baby fat on him. I'm sitting there next to him. We didn't talk. We didn't really know each other. Didn't like each other at the time, I'm sure. And I'm like, oh, I'm gonna kill this guy. And then I got that. I kind of had my way with him in the first round, and then came out second round. And instead of sticking to a better game plan and trying to take him down, I threw an overhand right, and he caught me with an uppercut, like perfect timing. And I don't even know if I watched it.
And what's funny? He said, now that you bring that up, he was like, I forget the name he gave you, but he told me that fight that you guys had, he will always remember that fight because that he made Fight of the Night honors for knocking you out that night.
Yeah, bastard. No, Mike's cool. Mike and I never hung out, but we talk on Twitter, and I'm sure someday we will get to him. Hopefully. Yeah. I'd love to, because he's pretty funny. We go back and forth. We've got some similar views. He is a big proponent of eating animals and killing animals, and I am a big proponent of not doing that. And I know he gives me shit on that, and that's his own insecurities because he's really short. He's kind of a little midget. So when you're really short, you gotta stick up and be like, I'm a big tough meat eater. No, I'm just kidding. Don't cry. Yeah, someday we'll get to hang out.
Definitely. Yeah. Hey. I know he's one hell of a guy. I love talking with him.
Yeah.
So then you went on to try it up in the World Series of Fighting. Tell me about that. Was it this is what I was trying to get through with Mike Goldberg, but he didn't understand what I was trying to say. The World Series of Fighting, was this like a sister show to UFC that was fighting against
No.
competition for UFC? What was it?
No, it was just another show that they tried to get thrown. I think it eventually became the PFL that's going on now.
Oh, okay.
I think there's some similarities between how it got bought and merged or whatever, but that was a mistake. I should have never taken that fight. I was done mentally at that point. It was, if you stay in it too long, you end up having that one fight. Like, I shouldn't have done that. I was dumb. I was kind of half-ass training. I was half in and half out. I'm like, I'll go do it. They're paying me pretty well for it, so I'll go. But I cut down to 170 again, which, when you don't have any, when you're getting down on that, like, I got hit hard at middleweight and didn't get knocked out or anything. And here I'm getting knocked out twice now at welterweight because there ain't any water in my brain. You suck all that out and you try to get it back in you in 24 hours. Not a smart thing. Your equilibrium's off, you get hit and you're out. You're sleeping. So that was a mistake. I probably should stay up at middleweight. I fought a guy that weighed, I think he said 217, 219 at middleweight. When I was weighing about 195 pounds, so and we stepped out and I could feel his weight. I dropped him, but that size just wore on me a little bit. So I was like, man, these middleweights are big. I stood next to Chris Weidman. I'm like, God, he's so freaking big. But that was my mistake. I should have stayed at middleweight.
So tell me, how'd you get the nickname A-Train?
Goes back. Joke that a buddy of mine and I had. We'd go work out late at night and wrestle. We were both wrestling at ASU. I was his coach, actually. Well, he was Kellen Flugager. He was a NCAA All-American at heavyweight, and then I was his coach, and then he tried to wrestle freestyle. We both wrestle freestyle. We'd go out late at night. We'd be talking smack, and he's like, I think he's called me the A-Train. He goes, I'm going to ride the A-Train today or something. Take him down.
And it just stuck with you, huh?
He was kind of stuck, and then I figured I'd use it. It was catchy enough.
Now, looking back at your career, how close do you think you were to fighting for a championship?
Well, I wasn't close enough. I did not approach it how I should have. Guys did get titles that I felt like, or shots at titles, or titles that I felt like I could beat, or deserve to compete against, like a Chael Sonnen. Like, I don't think Chael was in my league as a fighter, but Chael was good at one thing, and that was promoting himself. I mean, he's the originator. Before Conor McGregor, before any of those guys, Chael got up there and let his words speak, and he backed it up too. I mean, Chael was good. But he also got a lot of title shots and he got a lot of big fights because people hated to watch him fight, or wanted to see him lose or wanted to see him win. He put himself in that position. That's something I didn't do, and that's maybe the biggest thing, that my biggest regret in that sport is not getting on that bandwagon. Just for me at the time, as a wrestler, we're raised to can coach to get your hand raised, run off the mat, get ready for the next match. Not look at me, look how great I am. I can beat up anybody in the world. It's a pretty humbling sport, the sport of amateur wrestling. And so when you learn that, and that's in you, it's ingrained in you, like I could have, I can be pretty witty and come up with stuff, but I didn't use it in that regard, and I probably should have. I should have I could have backed it up even more too, but it is what it is, I guess, at this point.
So, besides from Sonnen, who would you have loved to fight in your division?
I think Damian Maia would have been a fun one at that time. I was kind of offered it in the middle of a fight, and then I don't know what happened, but it didn't come through, and Chris Weidman got that fight. I think Chael would have been a really fun one, though. I don't know if Anderson Silva would have been a fun fight. That dude was so good that...
Oh, yeah.
I would have approached him. I would have definitely approached him differently. Ben Askren would have been a fun one to beat up.
Yes. Yeah, because he just got his ass kicked by freaking Jake Paul, or whoever his name is.
Yeah, Ben had been knocked out in our gym a couple times at Arizona Combat Sports, and I've known Ben, and I think he's quite possibly the worst athlete to ever perform in mixed martial arts. But He's a good wrestler. I mean, he was a really, really good wrestler. I just think the sport of mixed martial arts didn't fit him, and people just respected his wrestling so much, and he kind of made his way with that. But man, he could not punch his way. Dude could not punch. He couldn't strike.
Now, who would you have wanted to go up in the division and fight, or down in the division and fight? Who would you have wanted to fight?
I necessarily want to fight anyone. I mean, I don't know. There's no one that would have been. I think Donald Cerrone, I guess, maybe would have been a fun one. I mean, that guy just gets out there and goes.
Not Randy. I'm surprised you didn't say Randy Couture.
Nah, I don't want to fight Randy.
Aw, come on. You don't think you could have had him?
It would have been fun. Yeah, I think it would be a great fight. I think it could have been Randy, but
I think you guys could have. He's a fellow wrestler. I think you guys could have gotten to the ground and all that.
Yeah. I mean, those are all like fantasy fights, I guess. Brock Lesnar, then everybody's gonna start naming. You know, I would never fight would be Cain Velasquez.
Well, okay. I agree with that one.
The scariest man, in the world. I mean, and having coached him at ASU and having seen the way he trained, and another one would be Ryan Bader. I think Bader's scary.
He's jacked up.
Yeah, and he's good. Like he's just he runs. He lives his life the way he should. He's a professional and he does the things he needs to do to obviously be the champ of the world in Bellator.
So I've got to ask you then now. What do you think the difference in promotions are? I know now is Bellator. There's a Pro Fighting League, Invicta, UFC. Which one do you see competing most with UFC? I'm not going to say run them out of business, but who do you see competing most with UFC?
You're not going to say run who out of business.
I'm not going to say run UFC out of business because that's going to be impossible to do. They're a multi-billion-dollar business.
I don't even know why you say it in the first place. That ain't happening. Bellator is the next biggest thing, and they've got money. They've got their I think still owned by Viacom. They're doing big things over there. They've got great fighters. They've got they're building fighters, and they've gotten some fighters from the UFC that have made their way over to Bellator. Ben Henderson, Ryan Bader are two that are at the forefront of my mind, Arizona guys. But we got a lot of great dudes, now in Bellator, and there's more and more fighters. And it'd be cool to see like John Jones come jump ship and come over to Bellator, but you'll never beat that marketing name of UFC. Like people don't know that the sport is mixed martial arts. Call it UFC, train UFC. So that right there, the genius marketing behind that is and it's on SportsCenter now. Like people don't even know what mixed martial arts is, but they know UFC. I don't even know what UFC stands for.
Yeah, that's true. You're right about that. Now I gotta ask you: is there any rivalry that you had with a fighter that you would have loved to fight, but you didn't get a chance to fight? That you had a rivalry with?
No, but I mean, Jason Miller, I think we were talking back and forth a little bit on Twitter, and I looked forward to shutting him up a little bit. Like I did not care for him at all. But that was really it. I might not have necessarily have a rivalry with anybody out there. Maybe that was a problem. But the times have changed. There's more people on this talking to each other and
that is
getting fights started and saying craziness and putting videos out there, whatever, that are getting people excited and pumped up. I mean, look at the Paul brothers, what they're able to do with the talk, the crap talking and fighting Mayweather. You don't get to fight the greatest fighter of all time unless you have a phone and you're able to get.
And Woodley, that was just announced too. Woodley, former UFC fighter.
Yeah, Woodley and the other brother. So, I mean, it's not necessarily what we went through before, but that's where we are now.
Now, I want to ask you about Conor McGregor. what do you think about him? And do you think the UFC kind of has babied him a little bit? I mean, with what he's been doing, like behind the scenes, getting in fights, out, what do you think of him as a man and a fighter? Do you think he's disrespected the sport outside of the octagon?
No. No, I mean, I don't know. I don't know enough about him, I mean, he's had some issues where have gone out, and I don't know, and they got pulled, whether it was some type of altercation with a female. That's embarrassing to him and his family, I'm sure. The UFC, I don't know, overly cares because he's in the news. If good or bad, he's in the news and he's out there talking, and people are excited. And he got a fight with Floyd Mayweather. So it's all about money at that point with that guy. I don't know, Connor. I hear he's actually a pretty good guy when you talk to him, and he seemed really down to earth. He's a self promoter. Like, he knows he took what Chael did and ramped it up and backed it up. And that was big with Connor. I do feel like, them giving him Chad Mendez on a week's notice or whatever Chad went out there to fight, I think was, Chad had to take it, but you give Chad full training camp, he's beating the crap out of Connor during that fight. He's not Chad. He went in the league with Connor, but you give him 1 week's notice, Connor can beat him. Chad handled him and then just got exhausted because he was out hunting or something. He wasn't preparing for that fight. Connor, I think, has had some of those. He's obviously gotten his butt beat by one of the brothers there, one of the Diaz brothers. So he's had his share of whoopings, and now he's still relevant. He's still getting his name out there and doing it, and he still obviously enjoys the fight. I don't think he has to fight anymore. I think he's financially set, and his family is forever. So he still loves it, misses it, I'm sure, and we'll get back out there and we'll compete. You just can't take that out of somebody.
Now, a lot of people are saying the greatest fight in UFC history was Stephan Bonner and Forrest Griffin, Ultimate Fighter 1. You personally, what would you say is the number one UFC fight in history?
Frankie Edgar, Gray Maynard was unbelievable, and I was in attendance for that. I think Dan Henderson and Shogun, both fights I was in attendance for. I think anything Henderson did was phenomenal. I can remember those ones. I mean, there were obviously others that are phenomenal, but if you don't know those Shogun, Henderson fights, go look them up because they were freaking ridiculous. And then Gray Maynard, when he fought Frank Edgar for the title in Vegas, in Mandalay Bay, I think, or no, it was MGM. Anyway, it was unbelievable. Gray, was he had the title in his hands and then got knocked out. It was just, I don't know if he got knocked out, but got beat. It was just ridiculous.
Now, with a lot of names retiring that made the UFC, do you think a lot of fans, even though there's still a lot out there watching it, do you think a lot of fans have lessened on the sport, considering the fact that all these big-time names, Randy Couture, all these old guys are finally gone from the sport, like Waddell and all that, and Ortiz and Shamrock? Do you think that's lessened the sport a little bit of the attendance?
No, I think it did get a little watered down. I think there's, they opened it up to all the foreign countries. So they're in the U.S. We don't know. We pretty much only think our world exists in the 50 states. So by bringing it, all these other countries in, I think that watered down the talent level, but it's in full stream. Like it's going. There's still. I thought there was a time when they were doing that and they were cutting people, that they weren't building names and fighters, but That's something that can't be stopped at this point. I feel like you know who the bigs are. What I liked about the old times, like fighting on UFC, pay-per-view, UFC 102, like it was the only fight for a couple months or whatever it was at the time. Like you kind of, as a fan, you look forward to these fights, and you look forward to every fight because you knew everybody on the card. You knew all 12 fights, you knew all 24 fighters, however many there were at the time. Now, like I'm lucky to know the main event. Or the co in the main event. After that, I don't know any of these guys, and I don't follow it like crazy fans do or should. But I do feel like it's been watered down a little bit. There was a time there where there was like a UFC every it was like 6 UFCs in a month or something.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
So we don't necessarily look forward to like everyone getting together and getting a pay-per-view and meet at someone's house and watching that big fight. We get that in boxing still every once in a while, and there's still a lot of boxing, but the main big ones people get together for. UFC, I guess there are some big cards, and they did have a real huge one the other day that I was impressed with, but for the most part, we don't know a lot of the fighters.
What trilogy fight would you like to see end their trilogy?
Oh, God, I don't know. You gotta bring some up for me.
Well, let's see. We've got, I believe, Shamrock and Ortiz have fought 4 times.
Didn't Stipe have one?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, let's see Stipe get a shot. Get a shot back at that title. I think he earned it. I think that'd be a good one.
I think Jones. And I think they're trying to get Cormier back from the announce booth because I think they fought twice and they both won one, so they're trying to get that.
Cormier never beat Jones.
I thought he did. I could have sworn he did once.
Jones never been beat.
Oh, okay, well, a lot of people. I just heard. That's what I heard. I heard rumblings. I don't know if this is true because I personally, I don't get pay-per-view, so I haven't been able to see.
Right.
Yeah, so this is just what I'm hearing. I'm hearing that they would like to have another fight with them too, but I don't see it if he's fought them both.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
So, but yeah. So, what else are you doing nowadays? Now that you're not fighting, are you still coaching?
Yeah, I was coaching in high school the last 3 years. It's been fun. My kids are getting a little older now. My son's going to wrestle next year in junior high, so I've got that to look forward to, getting them going. But they're both really active in their sport, so that's kind of what I do right now.
If you were told by the UFC to do an announce job, would you do it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I got my degree in broadcast journalism, and I've done a little bit of that. I've done Mike, much time. We got a radio show out here in the Valley, in Phoenix. So, yeah, I would, but I don't know if that's happening.
So, now I got to ask about the camps. Obviously, you got one in Arizona. I think it's, Top Team? Is it Top Team down there in Arizona, I think?
No.
Which one you have in Arizona? There's I can't remember. There's so many teams out there.
You gotta come more prepared to these meetings when you start seeing stuff. You talking about Florida? You think Arizona's Florida?
No. I'm just like, there's so many teams out in my head right now. I know. I'm sorry.
No, the lab is here in Glendale with Ben Henderson. The labs are great. To be one of the best gyms in the U.S. And then Fight Ready's got a gym with Henry Cejudo. They're doing great things up there. And then there are several other, smaller little gyms like Arizona Combat Sports. Are still, every once in a while putting somebody out.
Yeah, well, okay, yeah. So now I gotta ask you about your, I was seeing this, if you don't mind me doing this, you said you had your twins, and this was,
Yeah, I gotta wrap this up real soon. I'm sorry, I'm just gonna text here.
No, you're good. You competed on an episode of American Gladiators. Tell us about that as a married couple with your wife.
Yeah, Yeah, it was a long time ago. It was cool though. We got around the show with Hulk Hogan and Leila Ali were the hosts, and experienced what that was like. It was a 2-week period where they shot these episodes and really got to see the behind the scenes stuff, and it was kind of just insane and just a lot of fun. It was cool. I mean, that was 13 years ago, which blows my mind now that I think about it.
And last 2 questions. Out of your NCAA wrestling championships, which one was most memorable to you out of your 4 NCAA? Well, no, sorry. Yeah, you were Pac-10 champion out of Arizona State.
I don't really know your question. I didn't win the NCAA, so I think you're mocking me at this point because I lost.
No, you were Pac-10 conference champion out of Arizona State in 97-98.
Yeah. Good times.
Good times, huh?
Yeah.
And my last question to you is, any fights you're looking forward to seeing?
Yeah, Jake Paul and Floyd Mayweather. No, Logan Paul and Floyd Mayweather. Jake Paul and those are the big fights. Those are the ones I watch now.
Yeah, you want
I don't care. Yeah, no, I don't have nothing on the horizon I'm thinking about. Just anytime someone that I know, I make sure I tune in.
I just want to see the Pauls get knocked out. I mean, that's all. I don't.
Why?
Because I mean they can't.
They're amazing at what they do. They're not bad athletes either.
They can't fight. They can't fight.
Undefeated.
I get that, but I mean, come on. I mean, you
gotta come with a little more than come on. I mean,
Floyd Mayweather.
They're good fighters. They're trained. They're getting out there.
Floyd Mayweather, you're going up against the greatest boxer of all time. You think you're going to win?
Wait, what?
One of the Pauls is going up against the greatest boxer of all time in Mayweather. You honestly think you got what it takes to win? Come on.
Well, he's got him by 50 pounds. That's gonna be a big difference. There's some weird rules where they're not actually going to score. There's no judging, so I don't know if there's a win or loss, but I'm sure somebody's going to try to knock someone out. I don't know. They're 12-ounce gloves, 16-ounce gloves, something like that. Yeah. There's some crazy rules, but they're not bad athletes. Like, it's not like you're seeing. You know, they both. I think they both wrestled. I know the older one wrestled in high school, and so he's kind of got that kind of work ethic. I think they're good at what they do, and that's getting attention from people like you who want to see them lose.
I guess you're right on that, but
yeah, I don't hate them. I think they're knuckleheads and they do dumb stuff, but I don't hate them that much.
But I do thank you for your time. It was awesome. I'll let you go. Your
partner never showed.
I know. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. You're more than welcome to come on anytime you want. I got your contact info. And yeah, it was fun. I hope you had fun too.
Yeah, man. Thank you. I'll talk to you later.
Yep. You have a good night.
Later.
Later.